So our next fireside chat is with Cameron, who is the founder of Superscript, an insurance broker and tech platform for high-growth companies and tech firms. So earlier this year, you raised £45 million in a Series A round. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you're going to talk to us aptly for Growth Day about how to scale up a business internationally.
Big topic.
Yeah, huge topic. So you started Superscript. You're Australian. You started it in the UK.
Yep.
And your first international market was the Netherlands.
That's right.
Can you talk to us about that decision? And
Yeah, so we do small business insurance, and I think starting 8 years ago, I always had a bit of a global ambition, and looking at kind of the insurance space in the UK, there was a lot of brands that did a lot of different things, personal lines insurance, pensions, all that sort of stuff. So I always had a bit of a ambition right from the start that I wanted this to be a global brand that represented small business insurance specifically. And as we got started in the UK, tech is a very specific focus for us, tech businesses and digital asset businesses and med tech and fintech and all that sort of stuff. And this was pre-Brexit, and we actually had a lot of European customers that had sort of businesses in the UK as well as in Europe. So we naturally started to sort of get a little bit more into Europe. Then Brexit came along. I don't know if anybody heard of Brexit, but that was a thing that happened. And that actually meant that we had to be a lot more specific in our strategy and how we wanted to attack Europe. So that's kind of where we got started, yeah. And I think there's a really interesting difference I've found in terms of like bootstrapping in your first territory. You kind of have the benefit of time and organic growth, and you can kind of get word of mouth out and sort of find your product market fit and all that sort of stuff. But actually entering into a new territory, there's a whole agenda that sits behind that. So from your investors to, how fast you kind of get up and running, and things around like brand awareness, like people knowing you versus not, really, really impacts the way that you can kind of hit the ground running, basically, in a new territory.
I want to get on to the bootstrapping question in a bit. I think it's really interesting. First, because within the European Union, after Brexit, there are a lot of countries. Why specifically the Netherlands? Why did that one make sense?
Yeah, I think you sort of start with your desktop research, obviously, and you can kind of understand the market and the economy and, the difference between maybe starting in Germany or France versus the Netherlands. So you kind of do that piece. Obviously, we're a regulated business in insurance, so the regulation and compliance was a piece for us to consider, and the AFM are a really strong regulator in Europe, so that was a big tick. Although it never sort of is mentioned in the strategy, I think you also have to be really conscious of the fact that you need to be entering in somewhere into a country or a city that you actually want to spend time in as well. So I had a lot of Dutch friends. We have Dutch people that work for us. Rotterdam is a fantastic city, very up and coming. There's quite a bit of financial services here. Obviously a really good tech scene as well. So I wouldn't underestimate how that personal element plays into the strategy.
And once you've set on a city, what do the first months of expansion look like? When do you actually get someone on the ground in the new place?
Yeah, I think that's probably one thing I would have tried to do better. And certainly in a new market, that's something that we would consider is having people on the ground sooner from our home or our first market, because you kind of need to have that connection with the actual geography. And I think you need to have, if you're going to be in the Dutch market, you need to have real Dutch people in your business that are helping you navigate the cultural differences, when you go to employ people, understanding the differences in employment, not just the employment law, but the kind of the philosophy and stuff that sits behind that as well, and how people actually want to work in a Dutch market versus in the UK market. So we needed to get all of that away. Obviously finding your lawyers, your accountants, or your compliance people, and really leveraging as much of the network as possible. And then I think the next thing, and it's a big thing for us right now, is really getting our brand awareness out there. If you're going to attract people to your business, not just customers but employees as well, and partners and suppliers. They want to know that they're going to a brand that they know and trust.
Mm-hmm. How have you done that? What's that strategy look like for the brand? I imagine
I'm doing it right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean we've started really leaning more and more into networking events such as this one. PR is obviously really important, and we've just done a big out-of-home campaign. If anybody saw it, walking out of Rotterdam Central. So it's all of those kind of things that are picking up, and we officially launched here in summer last year. So we have sort of had almost a year now of people starting to pick up, and you get that word of mouth.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
What does the team look like on the ground here now? How many have come from London, from the old office? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think part of the strategy there as well was not to establish a team that ended up working in quite a silo. So I wanted to make sure when we think about development or our developers, they are mixed between the Rotterdam office and the UK office. We have some marketing staff here, and they work together as a team with the UK marketing staff. I think the probably more specialist kind of roles that are really specific to this market tend to be around the broking roles, where you have to have sort of local regulation knowledge and things like that.
And you talked a bit about bringing in talent. Is that, as you've said, when you're in the UK, your team was growing at the pace that your brand was getting recognition, and that's a different thing when you move somewhere else. How's the strategy been different in terms of bringing in talent?
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily a wholly different strategy. I think it's been harder to get the type of talent that we want at the pace that we want. I think the Dutch culture are a little bit more conservative, I think, when you think about moving different roles. And I think that is partly because of the way that employment law is sort of structured. It's kind of built sort of society, I guess, in a slightly different way. And then when you go into financial services, people are even more risk adverse on top of that. So obviously we have to do all of that extra work just to make sure people feel like we're a credible business. And I think the only way that you can kind of do that without a massive brand awareness piece in that is really spending a lot of time with people on the ground, meeting them. You can't hire people totally remotely.
That's true. And you also touched on this earlier, but how in the early days you were bootstrapped. I understand you had angel investors, and now you've moved on to kind of international big VCs. How has that changed for you as a founder, but also in terms of international growth? Are there newer expectations or how does that look?
Yeah, I mean, there is the different pace that I sort of mentioned. If you're going to go and launch in a new market, people, particularly your investors, want to see that return on investment quite quickly. You can't sort of build up over time. I think the shift that we really saw last year in the investment community was that shift away from super hyper accelerated growth more towards efficient use of capital. So it did change our strategy slightly last year in terms of we've got like a big kind of online platform, and different channels sort of have different levels of kind of hitting profitability within a certain time frame. So we started to shift the investment more towards like our advisory team, for example, where it sort of tackles a slightly different part of the market versus what we've got in the UK is quite a bit more broader. And that is to respond to that efficient use of capital. How can we start making money in the new territory sooner, rather than some of those strategies that still have ultra growth, but kind of the profitability is further down the line.
And are you thinking about further expansion? Has the kind of economic environment changed the forward plan as well?
I think that, we definitely look at Europe more broadly. I think for us right now, it's good to have the focus of just the Dutch market. We still do get quite a bit of customers in all over Europe, and that kind of funnels through our Dutch business, which works well. We also have shareholders that have a much more global footprint in Asia Pacific and South Africa, for example. So they're kind of interesting strategic ties that might end us giving us a bit of a kickstart in those territories as well. So yeah, I mean, one step at a time, but there's a bigger global roadmap ahead.
Exciting. And then one thing I'm particularly interested in, how do you keep I imagine the culture in the London office, how do you kind of keep that in? When a company starts, the culture is normally quite healthy and everyone is there from the very beginning. How do you keep that kind of often like family, young, early stage feel as you get much bigger?
Yeah, I think you have to be really deliberate in your communications. I don't think you can kind of just start something and expect it to organically kind of flourish in the same way. I think you have to appreciate right from the get-go that it's not just a one-way strategy. You're not just going, I just want the UK version of our business in the Netherlands. There is a lot that the UK can take back from the Dutch culture and the Dutch way of working, which I feel will benefit our side of the business as well. So it's kind of a holistic cultural evolution across the business. And, you know, spending a lot of time together. I'm a big fan of, you know, having people in the office and in sort of a hybrid working. I think face-to-face is just really, really critical for developing those relationships and keeping your culture going.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a few minutes for questions if people have them, or I have some more for you. We've got this mic we can chuck to you if people have a question. Sure. Can you catch? There we go.
Is this a microphone?
It is. There's the circle on the top is a microphone.
Cameron, nice to meet you here. I loved your LinkedIn post where you said, like, this is not a traditional insurance company, and we're doing your PR in the Netherlands, and the name is This Is Not a PR Agency, so that's a great connection already. Yeah. But I was very curious, did you insurance yourself?
Say that again.
Did Superscript insurance themselves?
I don't think that's typically best practice to insure yourself, so we normally work with somebody else.
All right, and why did you pick Rotterdam over Amsterdam?
I think again, I think there's quite a few financial services companies here. I think Rotterdam, I'd spent quite a bit of time here. I've got quite a few friends in Rotterdam, so it felt like quite a sort of up-and-coming kind of cool city to be in, to be honest. And sort of looked at, assessed the kind of access to tech talent, for example, that we had potentially available in Amsterdam versus Rotterdam, and it didn't seem like there was enough of a reason to drive us to Amsterdam. So Rotterdam all the way.
Yeah, all right, great, thanks.
One last question at the back.
I need to throw it now, I think.
Yes, you do.
Tricky. Hi, Cameron. Thanks for being here. So I was actually wondering, we also had a Pepe today talking about fuck-up nights, define our fuck-up nights. And if you scale to a new country just like Holland, I'm sure there is a bunch of assumptions that are there that might end up in a fuck-up. I was wondering if you could share one of the main fuck-ups that has kept with you over the years.
Employment is very different here. In the UK, and you have to take this with the way it's intended. It's not intended that you hire people and just fire them. That's a bit more US focused. But I feel you tend to have a lot more time in the UK to work out whether or not a relationship is working between a new employee and the business. Here, it kind of feels like you got a month. And I think I don't want to throw anybody on the bus or say the wrong thing, but I think we haven't necessarily navigated that the best. That was a big learning curve for us, I think, and it is a mind shift that you have to get help to shift, because it is a completely different way of thinking to how we would hire people in the UK. Employment lawyers help us with that as well.
I think that's sadly all we have time for, but thank you. I think they were very valuable insights for people.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Are you sticking around for a bit?
I will stick around for a bit.
Okay, cool. So people with more questions can catch you. But yeah, thank you. Really,
Thank
really
you.
helpful.
Thanks, Freya.